I tell you, I'll do that again. Regular meeting of council, Tuesday, September 24th, 2024. We would like to begin this meeting by acknowledging that we are gathered on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Inca, Kappa, and Silk people. Late items. We do have one late item. We need to move 11.1, which is in a reports from information items to 8.3. I need somebody to give me the old, thank you, Councillor Petrosi, Councillor Baxter. All those in favor of moving? Opposed? Carried. So thank you very much. So we now have 8.3. Any public input? Seal. Any public input? Thank you. Adoption of minutes. 4.1, regular council meeting minutes, August 27th, 2024. Recommendation that the minutes of the regular council meeting held on August 27th, 2024 be adopted. Councillor Egan, Councillor Olgan. Any errors or omissions, spelling mistakes, or there's something of that nature? Everyone look at Wendy. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 5.1 Enbridge, presentation by Jennifer Procura, Community and Indigenous Engagement, Celine Denny, Community and Indigenous Engagement, and Michelle Furlong, Operations. I'm assuming they're on Zoom. Oh, I'm sorry, Seal.
Sorry, Your Worship. So they were to be presenting in person. They have not arrived yet.
Okay, well, we'll move on. If we have to come back, we'll come back. Okay, no problem. Moving on. They're probably still at UBCM. There you go, yeah. 6, no unfinished business. 7, bylaws. 7.1, OCP amendment bylaw number 23772024 and zoning amendment bylaw number 23782024. 7.11 reconsideration of OCP amendment bylaw 2377. At the request of myself, the following resolution from the August 27th regular meeting of council is put before council for reconsideration pursuant to S131 of the community charter. A couple of reasons why I didn't think we gave this enough time was when we first got onto council back in 2008, we had another situation where we had killed it before it even went to first reading. And technically we were held accountable for that, and we actually had to go back. So we probably should, we need to take it past first reading. I'm not sure. I was kind of hoping the proponents would be here tonight, but apparently they're not, to have another look at this, just to make sure that we gave it the full look. So, Seal, if you want to grab that for a moment.
So ultimately we have a first and second for first reading. And I think what Mayor should do is open up the floor for further discussion prior to voting on first reading. And we can try and clear up some of the questions and then go to second reading and then refer to community concert.
So as the CAO said, it's open for questions. Councillor Etcher.
Is this the development that we found out after was being considered for a mobile home manufacturing site?
Yes, this is
okay.
Yeah.
That we didn't hear about in the meeting before we voted. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And was, to be honest with you, there was some issues where I think we had too many the bylaws right in a row, and they kind of blended into each other. So I just want to give this one a fair shake. That's all.
Yeah. And I mean, to the person who's doing the development and whatnot, giving the comments, I hope that they realize that we didn't understand that there was a possible development coming for that, because there's a lot of information, and I think knowing that we may have voted differently.
Seal.
So I guess my advice to council is you cannot be guaranteed what development will happen on that property at this stage. So you can only go through the process with us, which is in this part of it, you're allowing them to do the subdivision part of it, knowing that we can put covenants on it that will protect the aquifer underneath, that we will require certain amounts of further investigation. And then the next stage would be the development permitting stage, at which point we would then have additional opportunities to say yay or nay to whatever comes forward. So knowing that in 5 years there might be a thing should not impact you at this particular stage. So Mr. Janney can outline for you some of the things that we can specifically put on as covenants to protect going forward at this stage. And what happens is at each stage of a building or a development, with subdivision, development, building permit, there are places where we safeguard the community through the choices and requirements that we put on a developer or a builder. And that's sort of where we're at this point, is that don't think about what it could be, because it could be something else entirely.
It's happened before, yeah.
Yeah, so you really just want to focus on what we can do right now to allow this project to move forward without thinking about what could it be. Right now, these are the things we can do to protect the environment and protect the community.
And I think that's great information to have. It's just that not knowing that piece, we got quite a backlash for having made that decision without knowing that one piece. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
So what I'll do is we'll just open it up, and Mr. Janney, if you need to jump in, just hit your mic and you can jump in. And if, at the end, if you want to say something, it's Councillor Baxter.
What covenants are we gonna impose?
Oh, yeah.
So at presently, we haven't drafted a covenant, but we would require council's direction and approval to draft the covenants. And that once we draft the covenant, it will also go for a legal review. So at this point, we haven't really drafted a covenant, but the restricted covenant would specify condition which would enable the land to be used safely without damaging the environment and aquifer beneath the land.
So I have met with the owner since, or the proposed developer, and he has committed to putting oil collectors down in the ground, even though for the development they're talking about doesn't really require it, but he's willing to put that in the ground just to make it safe. Now, here's the thing. When we look down over there, we have a wrecking yard that is full of seething, weeping cars, and have been for years, that are dripping directly onto the ground with no collection. And then we have a bulk fuel right there as well. So again, they don't commit to this. This group is committed to the fact that they would put these in. CAO.
So again, when we look at what's there, that is not what I would judge it on, because those are things we can't control right now.
No, you're right, but
And we
there
don't
are some letters there are some complaints that point to that fact.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, we have existing things there that are doing exactly that
Yeah.
right now.
What you want to avoid doing is allowing for additional
Right.
contamination. And so what development services can do, again, they will require certain further analysis. So engineering, environmental assessments, cultural assessments, and all of those things, they'll be able to put, if it's most appropriate for the whole thing to be paved, that's what they'll ask for, right? The developer won't tell us what they want to do. We will give them the list of things they want to do. And if they're like, well, we could do this and we feel it's in compliance, that's what development services will approve. So really thinking about the fact that we can at any point in time require them to meet our expectations, not the other way around. And that's something that we really have to reinforce with developers, is that the city has requirements for the protection of the environment and the protection of residents and the long-term use of land in our community. And for cultural protections as well, for significant cultural sites. And that is the role of development services, to make sure those things are protected through land use planning and through the charter and the Local Government Act.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Egan.
Yeah, thank you very much. I just wanted to point out that the letter we got from, is it Krisha? Pardon me, or no, it was from Anita Eli Ellie. And she specifically pointed out that we wanted to make sure that we had in restrictive covenants to protect the aquifer that happens to be there. And also any contaminants that which would leak or spill onto the ground, like petroleum or fertilizers. And I think that as long as the environmental impacts assessments are done and we have our restrictive covenants in, I don't think it should be a problem.
Councillor Turney.
Kind of disappointed not to see the developer here. Couple points. Thank you, CAO, for the procedural concept of what we can and cannot do. And I ditto your comments on just because something is there doesn't mean we have to add to it.
Mm-hmm.
Those probably were in place long before we started to pay attention to the environment. So I don't think we should be adding to it. Couple points here. After we defeated the motion, the mayor got a email, and where it said, council know that there is an offer in place for the development of a modular home plant that would employ 80 workers full time. Yet in the information we got here under development, it says the use is yet to be determined. So, you know, we got conflicting. So is this in the works or is it not in the works? So
So-
we don't really know.
We won't know until all of the requests for development are in, right? And just because they put a request for development in doesn't mean that's gonna be until it's built and active. We don't know what the final outcome is. That's why at each stage, we make sure that council has the information without bias. Right? So knowing that this is gonna have 80 jobs potentially, that's a bias, right? They're biasing you to make a decision. However, we're asking you to think about in this part of the process, we have these tools to protect the environment, protect the residents, protect the long-term use of that land. And that is the tools that we're gonna use. In the next stage, we have a similar set of tools, and in the building development stage, we have a similar set of tools. And we will action those tools and provide you with information on those tools. So the covenants, the assessments that we're gonna require of them, if we're gonna require them to, bring up the height of the lot, whatever we need to do to make sure that there's no negative impacts on the community. That is what we are allowed to do at each stage.
Yeah, I feel much more comfortable approving this in this stage of the process if all of those covenants are put in place.
Councillor Exter.
So in the report that I got, it says the dike was compromised at some point, so they are gonna fix and replace that.
They're going to have to invest in it because it's not part of our diking plan. So previously there was discussion in council, but we cannot find any resolution on it that would make this undevelopable. So council has a choice. They can choose to say no because we don't want it to be developable because it's in the floodplain. However, this particular proponent has indicated that they will be investing in diking because we have made it very clear to them that this is not part of our dike plan. It's outside the flood mitigation plan.
Councillor Hogan.
Thank you. So I'm having a hard time understanding the process. It would be way easier for us to deal with this application if we know what is coming, which is not the case. So based on the information provided, and based on the information that we have, we have all these concerns from Interior Health. We have the feedback from the Lower Nickel Indian Band. We have the Ministry of Water also, expressing some concerns in the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change. So there is that situation. And if I'm not mistaken, CAO, you mentioned that the covenants are not 100% enforceable. So there is a guarantee, but there is not 100% for sure that they are going to stop somebody from doing something that they are not supposed to do. That's what you mentioned at the last meeting. So with this information that we are receiving, I'm not in a position to support, please.
I'm sorry, Councillor Hogan, I don't remember saying that. I apologize if I did. I mean, they are legal binding. It's part of a legal binding document, contract with the city, the covenants. Once we put covenants on a land. So if I said that, I apologize. I should not have misspoke.
So the way I look at it this way is when we were brought in, and even when we were campaigning, I don't know about most of you, but I would get comments like, boy, Merritt doesn't grow. Nothing comes to Merritt. We never see anything here. Fast forward 2 years, we're talking about the development up on the flats. We're talking about this. Now everybody's like, oh, slow down. Oh, too much development. Well, what do you want? Do you want the town to develop or you want to go to sleep? Which one do you want? Because now we're moving in a direction of developing the community, bringing jobs here. Cannot count on forestry here anymore. We've got to change our tack. And our tact is that we have land, and then we're talking about putting taxes on people who have commercial property that aren't doing anything with it. But the minute we have somebody who wants to do something with it, unless it's ironclad, and this is exactly what we're going to build and what it's going to look like. I mean, what do we want here? Do we want to grow or do we want to become stagnant and turn into spuzzing? What do you want? That's where I'm at. So, Councillor Councillor Baxter.
On page number 6, I got the covenant shall be executed prior to the rezoning being adopted. So we're just voting on if we're gonna fix this.
If you're rezoning it.
This is just rezoning.
Yeah, sorry, Councillor Petrosi hasn't had a chance to speak.
Yep.
As per procedure.
Well, I just think we should go forward with rezoning, and in agreement with Merritt that we definitely need to grow and we do need this tax money. We can't burden the citizens any longer, so I think we should move forward.
Councillor Richard.
While the CAO's comments earlier are correct, that just because we rezone something doesn't mean it's going to be built until it opens. That's true. I echo the mayor's comments and Councillor Petrosi in the sense that we also have to give opportunity for things to come here, because if we don't give the opportunity for anything to come here and we don't give a chance to pivot, which nobody was in the former council session where we had that as SOGA, where NASA had a change a number of years ago when they had to pivot with their technology and everything. Change is constant and we have to move with it. And with the covenants of security, I think we can work with that. So I feel that we can put some safeties in place, dike work, putting extra soil down to prevent flooding issues, whatever the case may be. So that's why I would support this. Thanks.
CAO.
So I think, and this is a good reminder from the CAO, or from the CO. So it's really important if council supports this, that's fantastic. This does go to public hearing. So as part of your role and not, again, not having bias, is that you support it now with the idea that public hearing, you may hear something very different from the public, and you have to be open to making that decision based on what you hear from the public. So as we're trying not to bias you by what the potential developer is saying, I also want to make sure that you are open to whatever you hear, and remember, bias has to come out of your decision-making process.
Councillor Charney.
So when it goes to public hearing, do all the covenants that we would put in place to protect the environment, would those be at the open house, or would we just say, well, we'll put covenants in?
Mr. Jenny.
If council desires to staff to draft a covenant, we can start processing. I mean, we can start drafting a covenant, and that can be shared during the public hearing process. But I'm not sure we have enough time, but we can certainly start drafting the covenant if we want to share it with the public.
Thank you. Any other questions? No, CO.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to remind you that a public hearing, the purpose of it is to hear input from the public. So it is an opportunity for members of the public to come and speak about the proposal, either for or against. And so you just want to keep your mind open at that point up until the closure of the public hearing, and then you can have a debate afterwards as to where you are landing in regards to the proposal. But it's the opportunity for the public to come and speak to you and give their perspective.
So what I might recommend is that Mr. Janney prepare a draft of what could be covenants. And as you listen to what the public has to say, if anybody should come and speak, that you can make a decision on which covenants you'd like to see in place based on what you have. So I think what I'll ask Mr. Janney to do is identify what potential covenants are. And that way, once you've heard from the public, you will then could have a list of those potential covenants, and you can choose which covenants you want.
Have that done by tomorrow noon.
Tomorrow noon. No, just kidding.
Joking. Councillor Egan.
No, thank you. I just, I appreciate everybody of the staff telling us what our role is, but I think we know what our role is, to listen to the public. That's why we got elected. So thank you very much.
So, CO, do we redo the first reading, or we go directly to second? Okay. So we do have a recommendation. It was moved by Councillor Petrosi, seconded by Councillor Charney. The council gives first reading to the official community plan amendment bylaw number 2377-2024. Councillor Petrosi, Councillor Egan, any other questions on this? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. 7.1.2, 7.1.2 OCP amendment bylaw number 2377 and zoning amendment bylaw 2378. We have some recommendation that council gives second reading to the official community plan bylaw number 2377-2024. Councillor Petrosi. I need a second. Councillor Charney. Any more questions on this one? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Recommendation that council gives first reading to zoning amendment bylaw number 2378-2024. Councillor Petrosi again. Councillor Charney again. Any questions on this? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Recommendation that council gives second reading to the zoning amendment bylaw number 2378-2024. Councillor Egan slips in there. Councillor Baxter gets in there. Any other questions on this one? I want you too much. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Recommendation that council direct staff to require that the applicant register a covenant prior to zoning amendment adoption that restricts the uses on the property as per Interior Health's recommendation. Councillor Egan. Councillor Baxter, Councillor Egan, you have your mic on.
Yeah, I was just going to the next one. I'm wanting to know what the date
Oh.
would be.
Okay. Any questions on this one? All those in favor? Last recommendation that council direct staff to schedule a public hearing. Councillor Petrosi shakes his head. Councillor Egan gives me the finger. That one, no, this one. Any questions on that? Do we have a timeline on the public hearing? Seal?
No. So we have to provide notice.
2 weeks notice.
We have to provide 2 weeks notice in the newspaper, and we also have to do a full mail out. So it would probably be towards the end of October that we would have the public hearing.
Thank you.
And
Any other questions? Oh, Seal?
sorry, could I just confirm the voting for the back one, the council directs staff to require the applicant to register as a covenant for that one? We had those that voted for. Were there any that were voting in against? No.
Last one, I've already read it out, the public hearing schedule. Did I have a seconder? No, I didn't have a, Councillor Hogan, Councillor Baxter. Any questions on that? Oh, all those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Janney. Thank you, CEO. Thank you, COO. 7.2, City of Merritt Emergency Measures Bylaw number 2374-2024. There is a recommendation that council adopt the City of Merritt Emergency Measures Bylaw number 2374-2024. It's all in your package. I'm sure you've gone through it. Any questions? Councillor Egan. Oh, okay. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Egan. Yep, you betcha. Seconded by Councillor Petrosi. Question from Councillor.
Again, I am in favor overall. There are two observations that I just want to mention here. I am always opposed with the word good faith. Good faith can imply a lot of loopholes in the future. So in my mind, the ambiguity of good faith actions in section 9.1 uses the term good faith to protect individuals from liability unless grossly negligent. This could be a potential loophole, making it difficult to hold individuals accountable for poor decisions or misconduct during an emergency. Again, so if we were able to find a different, word, it could be my preference. And the last one, it's about the limited role for public and other entities. Also, the document outlines the role of volunteers organization section 8.1. There seems to be limited inclusion of public consultation or involvement in emergency planning, as well as how other stakeholders outside the city and province would interact with the plan. So I based on a little research I did with other municipalities, what they have not too much, because this is an emergency situation. They have certain people or stakeholders that will be representing the vote of the community. Something in those lines, I think they could be appropriate.
So the first part, the first comment, we will confirm that word. And if we have a better word, we'll make sure it's not illegal, because that might be a legal ease for, again, only for negligent. Because decisions will be made probably that people will not agree with, but were made with the best of intentions with the information and the resources that were at hand, right? And I think that's what the good faith covers, but if there's a better word, we'll talk to legal about that. The second part, and if I'm absolutely wrong, Mr. Hart can come up and correct me. The emergency management or emergency measures bylaw, separate from the emergency management plan, which we are required to do engagement and consultation with the First Nations and with the community for developing the plan, and the stakeholders, many stakeholders will be involved in that. We will have, individual plans for different organizations like, the seniors' homes and the schools. And so there is lots of community consultation and engagement. And then during an actual emergency, what we do is say we limit how many people of the public, the general public, are actually involved, right? Like, we want to make sure that people aren't accidentally getting in the way of responders or a planned, the execution of a planned response. But there is lots of consultation on the emergency management plan that still needs to be done. So I don't know if that covers your concern.
So we do have a motion, the council adopts City of Merritt Emergency Measures Bylaw number 23742024. And we will get back to Councillor Ogan on the good faith comment. Okay, because that's good to know. Councillor Egan. Oh. Yeah, it's your hand up. Councillor Egan, Councillor Ogan. Any more comments on this one? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. And I have to be honest, down at UBCM, this was a major conversation talk about climate change, disasters, the whole bit. It seems to be the conversation of the day because everybody's experiencing. We've been through it, but others are now starting to experience or worried about experiencing. So, new business 8.1 City of Merritt 2024 Water Conservation Update presentation by Mr. Rick Green, Director of Public Works and Engineering Services. Mr.
Green's going to present you with.
Sure. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, if that's okay. So we have really been doing a lot of work on the water conservation. We've been engaged a bit more with the watershed folks. And we have some data work that we're trying to collect around usage, because I can't remember if this is Mr. Green's report, but our previous water study showed that we were using like 4 times the amount of water that the average Canadian uses within the City of Merritt. So per capita, we're using significantly more water than the average Canadian. So, you know, this is a bit of a tough news story, but also a good news story that Mr. Green's bringing you. So,
Mr. Green, you're up. So as you're walking here, maybe I'll ask you the question, and maybe you can answer this for me. I know that we're all plugged into the same aquifer, and when we see the roundabouts out in the fields, the farmers' fields, that's taking from our aquifer. Does that show up anything in our water usage? Does that, or do we just go on our refill? Or am I taking some of your show away here? If I am, then just say I'm going to get to that.
We can definitely talk about it anytime you're willing. I have not addressed the surrounding farmlands in what the city is doing because they are licensed separately.
Yes.
And I think some of them are actually surface pumping, some of them have wells, some of them are actually looking like we are going down into the deeper aquifer where the Ken Guard is and trying to secure better water source. Our issue with the Ken Guard obviously is treatment. They would not have that issue if they're spraying it all over their fields. Something to mention, and I wanted to bring this up largely as a review and a bit of a good news story, because we talked about this earlier in the spring, how we were going to run this year as far as the water restrictions. And I really wanted to get a baseline for running at a reasonably consistent restriction level that allows most people to do most of the things they need to do, including water their lawns twice a week, and try and see what it does for the aquifer. And we track that aquifer constantly. You'll see some of that in the documentation of how we tracked over the year. We've been running low over that. The grade off area is the 10-year minimum and maximum graph. The line in the middle of all that is the average. And we've been running low all year. And yet, this year, we've been using substantially less water than last year. And last year, we went through a whole myriad of changes on the water restrictions right up to the highly restrictive level 5, shut everything off and freak everybody out. This year, we took a different approach to it, and we're doing better. And believe it or not, I mean, the aquifer jumped up later in the year and started meeting that lower level. And if you compare those graphs to last year's graphs, there's some logic in this, that we're doing things differently. We're not using as much, and we're having an impact on the aquifer. The one interesting part of that graph that's in what I gave you is those 2 little rainstorms we had a couple of weeks back. That little blip right in the middle of September there at the start of September, that's what that is. When you zoom in on that stuff and look, those 2 rainstorms caused the aquifer shortly after that to have that spike up and got it up into the what you'd call the normal range, lower end of the normal range, mind you, but normal range. And we're actually lately, when I checked it this morning, we're tilting back up again and doing well. So I think the lesson here is largely the moderation is probably better than everything open and then freak out at the end, because it causes a whole bunch of activities that can't happen later in the year when we start shutting the taps off. In July, like we did last year, hard. It has a very heavy impact on people. It has a very heavy impact on what our staff have to do, because we have to do a lot more work telling people. We have to put more signs out, and all this takes more time and costs money, where we ran a very clean, consistent approach this year. I wrote, can't remember what the number in my report here is, somewhere around 40 some letters, if I recall, warning letters to people, which I'd call more educational opportunities. Most of the people that I talked to that called back after they got their letter understand that I'm trying to inform them, in case they weren't aware already, discuss the issues and make sure that they can get themselves into compliance. The goal has never been to turn people's water off. That was sort of reserved when we talked earlier this year, for people that just aren't getting it and refuse to comply. And we haven't really been seeing that. The good parts are, we're seeing some people change their landscaping to more drought tolerant stuff. They're taking grass out and putting rock in. We're seeing a lot of brown grass out there, which tells me a lot of people are not watering at all. We're also seeing some that don't look like they've had an impact at all, right? All for, maybe that's just that time twice a week in the middle of the night, and they're very diligent about setting their timers, and they're having really good effects. Hopefully they're not watering 7 days a week. One of the things I wanted to let you know is bylaw is quite busy, public works staff's quite busy, but I spent a fair bit of time this year myself, off hours, walking around the community, driving around the community, making notes when people are out, so we can take the opportunity to educate them by sending a letter, following up, and it's been working. The other thing I wanted to point out is, when you talk about water usage, so we draw water from our wells, right? But we also put water back into the same aquifer, roughly 60% going through the RI basins that soaks back in. So when you think about usage, we are returning 60% roughly of the liquid water back to the same area. That's got to have a positive impact as well. A lot of other areas I've worked, they run, lagoons and things like that are more evaporative, like in central Alberta, where, most of your water is evaporating with the wind and the sun. Here we're soaking it in cell by cell out in the RI basins. So largely this was, I think the residents of Merritt need a pat in the back. They've done really good this year. The plan, even though we got a fair bit of pressure to do things differently and follow the province and up restrictions, we've resisted that, going, I want to see what the data does, so we can learn of how to moderate it in the future. And I think this year has been that success, and I think the residents of Merritt need a bit of a pat in the back for that. That's what this presentation was about, success.
So, question that I have, we kind of talked about too, that we would be moving towards more of our own drought resistant plants and everything through our greenhouse. Did we start that this year, or is that for next year? Because I notice there's some different plants out there. I think, like, I see big sunflowers out there now and stuff like that. So I'm just wondering, how did that process go?
Well, park staff is jumping on board very well. They're a little disappointed. I mean, they like to see all the pretty flowers and they like to see a bigger statement, but they're getting it, and they're making plans to move things around. We still have the greenhouse that we have to physically buy. We have the older one that we renovated a bit to make it work for this year, but staff were out early this spring, moving little seed things out and making them grow and then taking them out. Some of the stuff we bought to go into certain planting areas are perennial drought resistant type plants, and that's where we're going. We want to create a world where that makes sense.
Councillor Charney.
You talk about adaptation, and I do see that around town. I see the rocks and the grasses. I also see the fake grass.
Yeah.
But then also Fire Smart BC says, don't use it because it's close to your house and it burns.
Then
Anyway,
I got to take my fake grass up because
That's
I
right.
got it in my backyard.
Anyway, adaptation, simply, we don't mow for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And so the grass gets longer, it stays greener. So, you just have to find ways to adapt. And, obviously the citizens have, and I think the program is working.
Counselor Baxter?
Starting next year, will we start at level 3, just so that we can be consistent throughout the whole thing?
Yeah, I will likely for this winter. We'll probably pull things back to level 1 mid-October-ish, because nobody should be really watering outside at that point anymore, and probably somewhere going into April, push it back up to level 3 again. We'll make that plan once we analyze the data a little bit more, see how things have worked, get a bit of feedback on things. But what I really like about running at level 3 is that it is relatively restrictive, but it allows everything to move along. A lot of the things people like to do are still able to be done at level 3. Something as simple as washing your car in your driveway or on your lawn. It's not restricted at that point. I do think we need to have a look at the bylaw itself and what makes up all the restrictions, because there's some things that we look at that probably aren't really working the way we want them to after talking to some of the residents. So there might be some modifications that we bring to you over the winter in preparation for next year that might work better under level 3, level 4 conditions.
Counselor Petrosi?
Did you take into consideration, I guess, 2023 was the rebuild of the flood. So the sports fields were being watered more, people planting, replanting and all that. So water usage in 2023 was up high because of that. It was.
There's going to be
The
many
sports field,
factors that
yeah,
contribute to
right,
it.
yeah.
Like I said, this to me is the restrictions that people are following are one of the things that are helping us achieve what I would call the goals.
Yeah.
We're not, if you look at our overall water consumption, it's not down to where it needs to get to. We're still in that, 3+ times the Canadian average when you run the numbers. That's not good. But now we need to find out why. I think, we got to rip the Band-Aid off that water meter program as we go forward as well. We're going to learn where the water's going when we get this program up and implemented. We're out to tender with that right now, getting ready to implement, do more investigation with it. We should be able to learn a lot more about how we use water when we're able to determine where it's going.
Just echoing Councillor Charney about the zero escaping. I'm seeing more of it.
Yeah.
I personally did quite a bit of it. I don't think I washed my truck this summer. I went to the car wash. So just little things, I guess, that really help, and not, cutting your lawn every 3 weeks, let it grow a little longer. So yeah.
I know on my end with the vehicle washing, I can use a lot less water in my yard than I would if I went down to the car wash.
Okay, yeah.
Right?
Let's support local business.
I used to wash my trucks all the time, and this year. not
See
at
you.
all,
So I think it's what we're talking about, like the holisticness of the programming around water is really important, right? So the provinces in a drought, they're places that are only going, like Kamloops will always be at a level 3 until we're not in a drought, whenever that may or may not occur. They've set their standard as restriction level 3. We may choose to do that, but this is all about figuring out why our per capita water consumption is so high, right? It's understanding if there's water loss, because if we can account for where all the water goes, then as residents, we're doing something wrong. So we've got to figure out, again, if we're restricting water use, if we understand if there's losses in the system, we either have to fix those issues or we have to educate people in a different way, because, this report from 2019, yeah, like we're significantly high. So pre-flood and pre-flood recovery. Yeah, that report's from pre-flood.
Counselor Hogan?
I just want to say that 20% reduction, it's a success. So whatever we are doing, it's working. So I feel like there is always room for improvement. I feel like these are perhaps short-term strategies, but when we talk about maybe long-term strategies, what else can be done, to continue in that path? So a citizen brought to me a comment, and I forgot to bring it forward, and now I remember that. She mentioned that in the past, the city had compost program, and where the city was able to purchase all these compost and sell them at full price to citizens. I guess I was before my time here in Merritt. So, and she was mentioning that because perhaps as some cities in the States, that they purchase rain barrels. And with that, they have reduced a lot of consumption. In my personal experience, I got one, maybe that was July this year, and it has been already 3 times. and I was able to utilize that water. So perhaps some type of a long-term strategy that may be implemented to continue with this success would be very.
Yeah, absolutely. We've discussed those things like the rain barrels, you know, if we can find some funding to be able to maybe even subsidized use of rain barrels or some sort of you know, reward for using a rain barrel. So that's something that we have to look at, whether or not we can get some funding for, because ultimately people are going to have to start being way more consistent. This drought isn't going anywhere.
So just to bring you up to date, the city at one point in time did have the composting barrels. I believe we got that on a grant and we actually gave those away. We didn't sell them, we gave them away. And we actually had a hard time giving them away. I think we might even still have one or two down at the city works yard.
Probably, yeah.
And then we did the same thing with the rain barrels. We got rain barrels, big, large ones. I do believe there was a small cost for that, but it was done on a grant. And a lot of people took us up on those rain barrels. One of my friends has two of them, and they just rely totally on the rain barrels. So we have done this in the past. And I do believe it was on a grant funding situation, and it was very successful. And I agree, maybe it's something to look at again. I agree.
If I may, I'm gonna take your comments there and go a little crazy on you that way. I mean, I've always run rain barrels. What I see here in Merritt is we don't get the frequency of rain, probably to do us a lot of good on that end, where most of the places I've lived in the past, you know, you're getting rain every couple of weeks, you're watering your lawn into rain barrels and they're filling up again on that kind of a frequency. You don't even have to run your hoses. But when you talk about storage of water, I've always, and this is kind of the, let's get crazy, just think about it for a second. When you're designing subdivisions, wouldn't it be nice to design a subdivision that was sustainable that way? Where how many driveways do you see that you could incorporate storage underneath the driveway and pump out that to your lawn and your gardens and whatnot? All kinds of opportunities for storage in those areas. There's lots of good cost-effective products now that will provide structural storage underneath concrete and whatnot. You'll allow water to get in through your drain pipes and whatnot. All kinds of opportunities. But that's just we can do a lot of things, but there has to be the will to get there. And in a lot of cases, it's the money and the daring towards the new standards if we have the ability. Think about things, go a little outside of the box and see what we come up with.
So in the apartment my daughter was in Langley, was brand new, and they had gray water storage.
Yeah.
And then they used that gray water to do the plants and everything inside the, it was basically a tap that said gray water, but they collected that during the day, showers, dishes, whatever, and then it was used to do if you had plants and stuff. So that's part of what's happening down on the coast is gray water storage. So,
and I'm a little concerned, is that a strainer in your main stack or?
It still came out a little funky, but there was no rice or macaroni. Everything was good.
As we talk about what we're incentivizing for development in the community through bylaw, these are the kinds of things. If you want to be a green community, a sustainable community, these are the kinds of things that you can consider, like, hey, how can we incentivize that, bring us opportunities for that? And that's where we can do that work and research what other communities are doing. And, you know, if a developer is saying, hey, we're going to come in and we're going to do all these green things, then maybe we do some taxation relief, right, for development. But those are the things, if that's council's will to get sort of ahead of this trend, I think that people would find that very progressive.
I got a couple of things here. I would like to go back to what the mayor mentioned on the ranchers. They pull a lot of water out before it even gets to Merritt. They're watering 24/7, rainy days, sunny days. Is there any way to work with the government? We as citizens have to make restrictions. Is there any way for them to make restrictions?
So the government, basically the one fellow up at Forestry, Patrick Farmer, works very closely with the communities there, and they talk constantly about the levels, the drought levels, and reduction and shut off points for a lot of those sprinkling systems and whatnot, where they're trying to water their hay crops and whatnot. So that is an ongoing conversation. They have regular, I think they're quarterly, if not biannual meetings on the subject matter as well. I've been to one last year. So there is a lot going on that Patrick's working on with that community. We don't take as much part in it because we're a little more focused, and I pulled back from a lot of that stuff because I'm a little more focused in what can we do here. And I want to pay attention to how we can be more successful ourselves and worry a little bit less about what's going on around me that I can't control. I'd rather put my effort into Merritt. However, I do know in the conversations I've had that they do track that constantly. They have their meetings, they have their talks, they have their shut off periods, and they're monitoring that constantly.
Okay, so my second point is, we've talked before about the aquifers and no one knows the level of them. So how do we know how much we're using? How much consumption are we using? How do we know if it's up or down if we don't know the level of the aquifers? Just a question information. I just need that.
So we do know the level of the aquifer based on our gauge. So we have the gauges we have there that tell us the relative elevation of where the water's at. The science of this, in my mind, is not something that's 100% proven out in this valley. That aquifer could be hugely wide, hugely deep. There could be more there than we actually know about. But when we use less water ourselves and we still watch that level in the aquifer track well below even what it did last year, you have to ask your question, what other impacts on the aquifer are there? And we're taking water out, we're putting 60 roughly % of it back in through the RI basins. And yet we track below the 10-year average all year.
Could it just be seepage out? I mean, I just want to know information because I don't know anything about this stuff. But is it the citizens? Is it us? Or is there the chance of the water just going elsewhere too?
Well, and the rivers have been low. So a lot of the shallow and mid aquifer gets its water from the drain down in the river. So when the rivers are only running at a half or 1 cube per second and they're very dry, you're not getting as much water. Then if you have a large runoff, that water is going there and not down necessarily.
Right.
To have that consistent, I mean, if those rivers were sitting at a nice consistent knee deep level all the time, doing their soaking in and not just cruising through, you'd think we'd see a lot more soaking in going on. But if you have a couple of big rainstorms and they wash in, wash out and go downstream, we have a quick runoff. We had a very bad snow this year. As far as the snow accumulation coming down the rivers, that stuff cleared really fast this year. So all that lined up to making sense that the aquifer is lower, but then have a look at where we are now and what other impacts are on it. We're kind of coming back up into that range again after watching it dwindle all year. And there, a couple of little rainstorms like we had did a fair bit of that spike up, but it's been trending, right? So I think there's a lot more to it than we're ever going to know. But I think water conservation as a philosophy is everybody's responsibility. Don't worry so much about the data in my mind, worry about being responsible with water. I think that's the message for me anyways.
Thank you. One of the things too in 2023, one of the things that we have to remember is that TMX was using a lot of water for pressure testing on the pipes. Those trucks went every single day, 8-10 trucks every single day for almost the whole 12-13 months. So they did manage to pull, and the only way they stopped was when we went to level 5. But I have to agree with Councillor Olgan. I mean, I remember when you came to us and said, let's go to level 3, let's see what happens. And we managed to stay at level 3 all the way through the year while the province went to level 4. So it's a total success as far as I'm concerned. It's a great idea you brought forward. I'm glad we stuck it out. Yeah, we got kicked around a little bit, but so what? Seems to have worked out just perfectly. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We do have a recommendation that council receive the September 9th, 2024 report of the Director of Engineering and Public Works entitled 2024 Water Conservation Review for Information. Councillor Egan, Councillor Baxter, any other questions to make Mr. Green walk back up to the microphone? He's back. Go ahead, Councillor Hogan.
So we are in 8.2, correct?
We are still in 8. No, we are 8.1.
8.1. Let's see if I think. Oh no, actually, I asked all my questions. Sorry about that.
Okay, thank you. Nice psych out though. I appreciate it. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. 8.2, your big moment. Here we go. Structural fire suppression service agreement, Lower Nicola Indian Band. Recommendation: the council authorized the mayor and chief administrative officer to execute the proposed structural protection fire suppression service agreement between the city of Merritt and Lower Nicola Indian Band. Councillor Eden, Councillor Etchart, any questions on this one? Councillor Charney.
I've got one. Where is the Indian band number 4, Zote. Where is that? That's Coldwater Reserve. Where's?
Mic's on, please. Mic's on, please.
Some Lower Nicola and that same area.
Lower Nicola.
Yeah. So they have reserve lands that you would have to go from Lower Nicola, Chalouse, you'd have to go through the community to reach. That's why. we
Yes,
have
I know Joyaska.
That-
You
so-
go
so-
through, but where is Zote situated?
Good question. I do not know.
I
We'll
don't know.
just bring it up for you. We'll get it, so we'll bring that up.
Okay, and
answer.
second thing is, I was hoping Chief would be here. So, $57,498.34. Where to get the 34 cents? But anyway, so that comes out to $11,499.66 a year. How much does one response cost? Because he's basically, there's fewer than 5 incidents reported. So I'm just wondering, what's the cost of one incident average? Yeah, I know, but I don't understand it.
No, right here, this is the highway numbers.
Hmm?
This is the highway numbers.
Yeah. So,
Yes,
so
you'll
this
get
is based on the percentage of the assessment of the value of the building.
Yes.
That's how we do fire. So much like we do with TNRD's fire agreement, it's based on assessment value. It's not based on the cost of response because a response could be extremely expensive or it could be relatively inexpensive depending on the size of the fire. And
Okay.
however many trucks go out. You can,
Is there any, I don't assume, but is there any flexibility if all of a sudden we start having incidents after incidents after incidents? Do we have a chance to readdress the contract?
Yes.
Okay.
Councillor Hogan.
I think I want to expand on that because that was one of my questions. So I just want to understand if that amount, it is covering only the cost of the service, because we're talking about personnel, equipment, time. So is that enough? Like they are trying to explain that right now. So is that enough, or we are just trying to say, okay, this is going to be based on the building, and if there are more services, we will absorb that additional cost.
so if we saw a major uptick, we would renegotiate this. But right now, the typical way to do a fire service agreement is based on assessment of the number of buildings. And so the buildings that are in that space. So, if Zote has 10 buildings and each of them is only worth $10,000, then we're only taking like 10% of that cost, right? So, but if we were to see significant uptick in the number of responses that we had to do, then we would be in a different position because we would require some, so this is like the base level.
Right, the fact that we would be signing a 5-year agreement would not have to wait until it's up for renewal to be able to go to make the changes.
No, every agreement has a way to, like negotiate the difference, right?
We were gonna negotiate with TNRD every year.
Yeah.
So my next question, it's about the limited service. So we are talking about on residential. I'm just wondering what's going on with, the commercial, industrial, forest fires. How does that work? What kind of coverage do they have?
So, we only do residential because that's how much we feel we're willing to allow our vehicles out of our service area. Because we don't have any ability to, we don't necessarily have hydrants where we want them. We don't have an ability to, we don't know what's in those buildings like we might in Merritt because we have some development restrictions. We don't have that knowledge about, the LNIB lands. So we just don't service that, and it's only exterior, don't enter any buildings. But we only based our service level on residential because that's what they've asked for. Wildfire is dealt with by BC Wildfire.
So there is a fire, we have to assist them. So it's gonna be only taking care of the exterior and
Yeah.
Once it's done, so anything inside, we just walk away.
We only, so our attack would not be interior. So our firefighters would never go inside one of those buildings, again, because we don't have the building, like, we don't control the building code and the qualities of the buildings, right? Like, we know our fire department knows which buildings are areas of concern and what, some of the idiosyncrasies of some of those larger complex buildings. So, and because we don't have control over whether or not their hydrants are operating properly, so we may only be using our water tender, so we don't send anybody into a building unless we know for sure we have the water to fight an interior fire safely.
Any other questions? Have a mover and seconder on that, do I not?
Yes, you do.
All those in favor? Opposed, carried. 8.3, we're gonna pull this out of information items, permissive tax update. Who's gonna grab this?
So I'm going to give this to the CFO.
Mr. Kevin, it's up to you.
So after our last committee of the whole discussion, we've recalculated some of the adjustments that were made by council in terms of considering land only. So we wanted to provide an updated amount for consideration. There was a couple areas outstanding that we need to make some motions on. So we don't have a legal opinion back on the rodeo. So we're going to need to make a call on where we land with that, with or without that information. And then we've also got the golf course properties. So thought that the maps would help guide some decision making. So you'll see one of the maps includes Central and Rotary Park with that parcel. So, you know, that should factor into decision making. And the other one has the tennis courts on it, and it's not just golf course. So the one that may have some conversation is the middle parcel. So ultimately, we need to get some motions from council and some direction. We have to do the first, second, third readings of the bylaw, the first meeting in October, and the adoption in the second. And there's statutory advertising requirements for 2 weeks in the newspaper. So to the best of our ability tonight to get those motions so we know what to present in that bylaw. That's what we're looking for.
Tell us where we are at overall in regards to the amount of permissive tax that you have agreed to at this point.
So first paragraph of the report, $52,767.73.
Councilor Baxter.
With the one with the Central Park in it, is there any way in the future we can have it where it's just the golf course and Central Park so we can, because I'm fine with stuff that the city uses, but I'm not sure about the golf course. Is there any way we can split it in the future?
Subdivide that land. So there would be a cost to the city to do that.
Councilor Egan.
Oh, sorry, I'm just really tired.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, no, yeah. No, I forgot what I was gonna
No
say
problem.
now.
You can hit your button whenever you're ready. So, I'm gonna be 100% honest with you. I'm not great with numbers to a certain degree. And I guess what I'm looking for here is see a lot of numbers. And now the land that has the tennis courts in it, now we know those are only for a certain amount of time and then they're gone from there. So, and I doubt that we'll ever be redeveloping that area because it's so unstable. So that most likely will just become property that we own that we're doing nothing with. So we can pretty much X that out to a certain degree. So, Councilor Charney.
Well, I have to admit sloppiness on my part. I didn't go back and look at the figures for the Nickel Valley Rodeo Association of the golf course of how much the full amount was, $25.50. And is there any way we could look at those figures? Do you have those? I should have looked. Oh,
I brought it up on my individual computer.
I'm very lucky. I'm usually in too. Okay, then. Merritt Golf and Country Club. Okay, so it's these two figures. So if we 100% be 11,000, just under 12,000, then just under 9,000 for 75, just under 6,000 for 50%, and just under 3,000 for 25%. That's just one part. So are we looking at what percentage exemption we want to give to these associations now?
Mhm.
Yeah, that's the idea.
With
Or lands improvements or
Okay.
both.
Okay, so I remember my question.
Councilor Egan,
Okay, yes, I just wanted to know what percentage they got last year.
100%.
100%.
Okay, sorry, 100%.
Councilor Baxter.
Okay, so if we give this golf course, let's say we charge them 25% tax, how much does the city have to pay because we use the Central Park?
Correct.
It's city owned property.
So we
It is.
have to pay the taxes to ourselves.
No.
No.
No,
But we haven't explored, given the nature of these parcels, what that would look like in terms of trying to tax that first one and the third one, given that there's other facilities on those parcels. So given the way that they're structured today and the fact that we don't have time to survey them and subdivide them before this bylaw is due to BC assessment, otherwise no one gets an exemption in the city if we don't meet that October 31st deadline. So I expected the conversation to be on the middle parcel, given that there's no conflicts with other city facilities. That's where you might consider setting a percentage on land that would generate a tax bill for the golf course.
Councillor Charney.
I'm gonna skip right now.
So we've had conversations on this as well as we moved along. Some people we put at 25, some 50, some 75. I mean, this is for 3 years. For myself, I'm at 50% for both land and the other. That's just me. Councillor Richard.
On which role, your worship, if you can just
Both.
clarify,
Well,
The middle one.
the golf course. The golf course.
but there's three
All three.
roles.
The 1450
Yeah,
Juniper.
yep.
The PID 4510976 and dash 000.
So we've got to come up with a percentage for each one, correct?
We do. We need to be aware of the fact that that first parcel is not just the golf course.
Yeah.
And so I don't know that we can anticipate what kind of challenge may come with that decision. Right, so we're essentially, that is one parcel from BC assessment's perspective, and that includes Central and Rotary Park. So if we're going to assign anything but 100%, then we should probably, I don't know that we have time for any legal opinions on that, but we need to get one.
So I definitely would say at this point, for this year, or for this bylaw, this next 3 years is to focus on that parcel that has no other uses. Now I did just hear from the Director of Community Services that there is the parcel with the tennis courts and stuff that we have to investigate further as we move forward, because they also rent out RV parking. So they're making a revenue that we're sort of unaware of. And so going forward, there's a little bit more about the golf course that we need to do. But at this point, in order to get this bylaw passed, thinking about that parcel where there's no other city facilities and deciding on that parcel only, and the rest of it just gets treated as a city's parcel, and they are not paying taxes. We're just not collecting taxes on those lands.
So we're basically just looking at the one parcel.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, smokes, everybody's lit up. Who's Councillor Egan?
I just think that we should tax them on the building, not on the land.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Etcher?
You go 50% of the land, because then you're still giving an exemption, but it's not 100%. And we can revisit in 3 years. I think it's reasonable.
Okay, Councillor Doctor?
So we're agreed that the first one, 1990 Maxwell Ave, is 100% on buildings and land.
I guess at this point, yes.
And then the same as on the 1450 Juniper Drive, that's 100% on the building and land.
No.
It's a tennis court, isn't that consider building? So you
No.
have to maintain it.
I think we're just really looking at the first parcel, the 1990 Maxwell, are we not? This is the one that we need to come to a decision on?
We need to come to motions on all three of them.
Okay.
I think the one thing that we wrote in the report that hasn't been discussed is that there is a portion of that parcel that BC assessment has carved off as fully taxable. So 78,100 of the improvement value is a tax bill to the golf course today. So they have done that assessment on the improvement related to the golf course that's taxable for that first parcel.
Councillor Charney?
I'm going to go back to a comment that was made last meeting when we discussed this about a lot of communities are not giving permissive taxes at all. We have to come up with a large amount of money. And this is one way we can save money. I personally would go 25%, but I think the consensus is around 50%. I would be comfortable to go 50% with land and buildings.
On which parcel?
Maxwell. Well, actually, all three of them in my personally, I would go 50% on.
So I think we need a legal opinion, given that the land value includes Central and Rotary Park, which the golf course is not using, right?
So what?
So let's make this as simple as possible. What would you like us to see? Give us an idea of what it should look like,
So.
because we
council
don't
can
do this
direct us
every
on-
single day.
On what we might want to consider for these parcels in terms of information surveying and subdividing to take action over the next 3 years. For the time that we have left to execute and advertise this bylaw. The first parcel includes Central and Rotary Park, which are going to be very difficult to. We'll be taxing the golf course on that land as well, which is very difficult and requires a legal opinion, in my opinion. They are paying tax on 78,100 of that value as it stands today. So I was expecting that there's probably 100% exemption on the first parcel, likely 100% on the third parcel. And given that the middle parcel, 1450 Juniper Roll 976, is all golf course lands without conflicts with other city land facilities. If you wanted to assign a percentage anywhere from 0 to 100, that would be where council's decision making lies with our ability to execute over the next month.
So you're saying parcel 1 and 3, we leave at 100% and we focus on,
It's not my decision to make.
no, but I'm saying
But,
that's what,
Staff opinion is that
okay,
the
and
conversation.
I'd
would
like to
be
hear
on
the staff
middle.
opinions.
Yes,
And then we focus on the 1450 Juniper.
correct. And given the nature of the exemptions that we're potentially granting on the first and third, you could assign anything from 0 to 100.
Okay, Councillor Baxter.
So I think it's easier if we just go one thing at a time so that I'm not confused, which we're all jumping around to.
Councillor Richard.
I say the middle one, 50% on the land. That way, then we're just dealing with the golf course land. We're taking in more tax. And then we're not having a property that's involved with other buildings. That's why I stick with it, 50 in the middle.
So again, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Councillor Baxter, we're really just focusing on 1450. We're going to leave the other two at 100%, right?
So I'm going to clarify.
Sure.
For the first property, would council like to give on, so 1990 Maxwell Avenue, would council like to give us direction to remain at 100% exemption because this includes Central Park and Rotary Park? Now, keeping in mind, a large portion of it is the golf course,
But
but
we need legal opinion.
we need legal opinion. So
And we
you are
won't let-
technically giving them 100% exemption on that portion of the golf course.
So we won't be able to get the legal opinion in
No,
time.
no.
So it's pretty much written in
So
stone.
that's what
100%.
we're, yes, but
Yeah.
I need direction from council. We'd have to survey. We can't give you that without a survey.
In 3 years, we'll be able to.
Yes,
know
in 3
which-
years, we'll have a clearer picture.
Yeah.
So then we move to 1450, which Councillor Etchard is saying 50% on land only.
But first,
Yeah.
don't we have the first, second and third for that one?
No, because this isn't the bylaw. You're just giving us direction to prepare the bylaw. So if council would like to just stay at 100%, knowing that you're giving them a large, again, here you are giving them a large tax exemption. So just be aware that giving them 100% still gives them a lot of benefit for this
But
part of
we're
life.
also aware we won't get the legal opinion done in time.
Yes,
So we have that, and then nobody gets an exemption if we go past the deadline,
Yeah.
correct?
that,
So
yes.
we're kind of left to the point where we need to deal with this over the next 3 years. We can't deal with it tonight.
yes, no.
Councillor Hogan.
I'm a little lost here, so if we go with 100% in the 1990 property.
Yeah.
So how is that going to impact what the golf is right now paying? The 78,100.
They don't pay any taxes.
So the moment that,
So that portion is fully taxable from BC assessment's perspective. So we're just talking about the piece that's been applied for for permissive, right? So no different than the churches, they have a statutory exemption, then there's a residual piece that you apply for the. And same thing with some of the churches actually that own land that isn't eligible for the exemption, right? I think there's one church with a large parcel that has a different class and an assessed value from BC assessment as fully taxable.
so what I'm hearing is that even though we apply the 100%, this is not gonna be applicable for that specific portion.
The 78,100 would still be fully taxable.
That's.
Is that buildings?
It's buildings, improvements.
So then we move to 1450 Juniper. That's the one we're saying 50% on the land.
So that's
Hold on, Councillor Egan. I'm just laying it out here. Councillor Egan?
I disagree. I say 100% on the land.
So you want them to have a full exemption?
Why?
No, it's not because I golf. I just think the way, I mean, I don't want to see them fold.
That's not good.
Pardon? Well, I disagree. So I am allowed to disagree.
And then the third one, 14.
Council for us to give us direction
So.
for that particular lot.
Right now, okay, so right now there's two of us at 50% on that one, that's
this-
100%. This is 1450 Juniper Drive. On the golf course.
50 land and.
Nope,
There's no
just
improvement.
land.
It's just land on this one.
It's just land.
I'm willing to do 25% on that one. I'm sorry, but the golf course does make money. And if they have side businesses where they rent out RV spots, then they are making money somewhere.
Councilor Petrosi,
I'm at 50% for 1450 Juniper Drive.
Councilor Hogan.
25%.
So there's what, three of us at 50, two at 20. So
How little the taxes are. Good gosh, look how much money they're making. And we're giving them this exemption. I would go 25.
okay, so we've got three at 50, three at 25, one at 100. Which defeats the whole thing. So somebody's got to move here or not.
No,
Again, I would say that like if you, so I know we're asking you for individual parcels, for direction on individual parcels, but if you think about the total tax exemption that you're giving based on the 3 parcels of land, right? You're giving 100% on one parcel, 100% on another parcel, and 50% or 25% on this parcel. This is actually not the most expensive parcel, I don't think, right? This is the least expensive parcel. So you're giving really good exemptions on 2/3.
I'll drop to 25. Yeah. I'll drop to 25. And you know what? The whole idea here is at some point to understand that we are weaning you off a situation where a lot of communities now have just absolutely ghosted this idea. So 3 years, so we've got that at 25, so 100, 25, 100, right? And it's land only at 1450. Okay. Yeah.
Mhm.
Because we have to get legal opinions on the other.
Sorry.
Attorney,
Are we going to eventually get this surveyed so that we
Yes.
don't have this?
over the next 3 years.
Yes,
Thank you.
100%.
Yeah,
Good.
that's the
Yeah.
whole idea.
That could
We
be a
just-
motion of council to direct staff to do that.
So we'll put that with the bylaw,
Yes, let's put it with the bylaw.
as another motion to have council or have staff survey and parcel out.
Yep, let's have
Yes.
that. Let's have it with that.
Don't know that we want it in the bylaw, but just as a resolution, yeah.
Okay, so I guess we have to craft a recommendation for that. Do we, or are you okay with the, we're good? Okay. Any other questions on this? Councilor Egan,
Rodeo grounds, but we're not doing that one.
I don't think we're available to do it because we haven't had a,
We're not gonna get a.
you know,
So where are we at with that then?
for myself, I guess we would, I gotta be honest with you, the rodeo association with the improvements that they have done over the last 3 or 4 years, the way it looks now, the crowds that are bringing in. We are having to look at, now we've given them permissive tax exemption, we've given them a $5,000 thing and a grant and aid. So we're gonna be able to offer one of those from now on. So at my point, until we can cut some, I would prefer just to give them the 100% because they're doing hard work. They're now getting a foothold in the fact where they're actually making a dent in the Armstrong rodeo, and we are. So I don't want to see anything kind of myself. I mean, again, I'm only one out of all of you. I would prefer the 100% and we can work over the next 3 years to see what that looks like. I mean, that's just me. Whatever you guys would like to do on that one, I'm cool with it. Councilor Egan, your microphone's on.
I agree with you.
Oh, Councilor, Councilor Charney.
I'll disagree. They are doing a lot of different things. I think it's great for our community. But they're also bringing in a lot of money while they are doing all these extra things. So, you know, I'll go back to, we have to find money. And, you know, our taxpayers, we have to be accountable for our taxpayers. So I would be willing to go 50% and, that would be about it.
Councilor Baxter.
I'm with Wendy. I don't know 50%.
Councilor Hogan.
Okay, I was gonna go 25, but now we'll go with 50%, so that we can. just go
Councillor
forward.
Troisi.
50%.
Sit then, 50% it is.
And I just want to confirm that's keeping the money in your donations for the rodeo as well.
Yes, we're keeping the,
Okay.
yeah.
That not that has anything to do with this bylaw, but I just want to make sure when we're looking at our
Now,
budgeting,
is
that your
that-
intention is to
Is
keep
that
that.
50% of land and just the land? Just land? Just land? Just land? Just land? Almost feels like I'm in French. Just land. Excellent. Thank you. Hard work. Thank you for all of that. Thank you, CFO. Thank you, CAO. Thank you, staff. I hate you people, but that's beside the point. Any notices of motion? No notices of motion. Reports from council. Who'd like to jump into that one? Okay, good. I'll go. September 3rd, I had a transit meeting with transit. CFO, Kevin and I had a transit meeting. We were very, I think we were pretty happy with the comments that were made, and they realized that they've rushed into this regionalization a little quickly. They're going to be pulling it back, starting to implement it in 2025 and then move it to 2026. Most of you got that at the meeting at UBCM, but that was the meeting I was at. September 4th and 5th, I was at TNRD. September 5th was the shelter open house. How could I forget that one? September 10th, we had the cow. September 11th, we had a cow. And September 13th, I attended the local community Citizens on Patrol. I can't remember Brian, I'm trying to remember his name. Anyways, it's nice to see the community involved in that, but we have to make sure that it's going to be done correctly and that nobody gets themselves in trouble. So we're going to be really pushing the fact that Marlene and RCMP need to be involved. We do already have a Citizens on Patrol. It just needs to be revived. So I think we're going to work in that direction. September 16th to 20th, of course, we were at UBCM. Had some great meetings, had some great seminars, learned a lot of things, did a lot of networking, more than I've ever done before. I don't know if it's because we had less minister meetings, but we seem to have gotten a lot in. Friday night, Sense home game, be there, be square. Autocross up at the airport, Saturday and Sunday. I don't know if you know what an autocross is, but go on up and have a look. We have 80 cars up there, whipping up and down the runway and doing all sorts of crazy stuff. There's a home game again on Sunday, and then the Garlic Fest this weekend as well. So lots to do this weekend. And that's me. Thank you. Councillor Charney.
September 4th, I went to the Lunch and Learn on Communication. It was interesting. I'm still very lacking when it comes to social media. September 5, we had the town hall meeting where quite a few people from the community attended and voiced their concerns with the crime rate in Merritt. And there was interest in a Citizens on Patrol and a neighborhood watch. September 10th, we had the cow with the very contentious permissive tax exemptions. So that was very rowdy. Not really, but it was interesting. September 12th was Recreation Fair. I was really impressed to see so many organizations that are in Merritt providing recreation. So don't anybody say to me, there's nothing to do in Merritt, because the number of activities that you can participate, it's phenomenal. And it was a really good recreation fair. September 13, I went to a seniors monthly meeting. It was good. And I set up 3 presentations for the seniors. October 18th, Adam Hart will be presenting on emergency preparedness. November 8th, Kelly McDonald from IH. She will be talking about aging in place. December 13th, Dr. Andy Pizzi, P-I-Z-Z-I. I don't know how to say his name. I know, but it's not an A. He's going to be talking about immunizations and communicable illnesses. So all you seniors in here, you should attend. That's only Mike and I. And then that night, I also attended that meeting with the concerned citizens where the main topic was safety of the community. And I think it was well stressed by the mayor that they work with the RCMP and working with the community policing office. And not to become a vigilante group. September 16th to 20th, I went to UBCM. Just a couple of notes from UBCM that I found interesting. Dr. Paul Kershaw made the statement that housing should be for homes first and investment second. I thought to myself at first, yeah, that sounds really good. But if you don't have people building investment homes, where are your rentals? So it has to be a balance, and I don't think that common homes first. I didn't sit very well with me. And another comment was because we have that STEP program in place by the government, it was brought up that housing build should be driven by local climate zones. One size does not fit all. And that's true. You take a house built in Abbotsford versus a house built in Fort St. John, totally different environments. And yet we've been asked to one size fits all, which I think that should be addressed. Got one more. Okay, and then in the mid-size forum, they talked about local businesses not supporting food banks as much as they were. Well, why not? It's because they're spending so much money on repairs and vandalism that has taken place and theft that they don't have leftover money for food banks. So that's kind of a sad situation. Okay, that's enough for that one. Today I went to the Merritt Childcare Resource and Referral opening at the Crossroads Church. I was very impressed with, they've taken the top floor of the Crossroads Church and have completely remodeled it. And it's, the purpose is to enhance childcare options and services and promoting healthy development of children. The YMCA is running it. The ministry is financing it. And there was a good group from Kamloops. And if it runs the way they say it's going to run, excellent program. So I was very, very happy about that. And on Saturday, I'll send you pictures of grizzly bears if they don't come across the river and eat me. So I'll be watching the grizzly bears.
Make sure it's a live feed.
Yeah. Yeah, they're all salmon eating, and I'm going to be in the middle of the river taking videos.
Way to go, Steve Irwin. Councillor Etchart.
Okay, well, you guys have already mentioned a lot of it, but on the 4th, of course, the lunch and learn, which is informative, and thanks to staff for the information. On the 5th of September, we had the open house about the shelter, which coincidentally at UBCM, I was in a meeting with one of the members of BC Housing, so I got to kind of say to their face that 7,000 angry people are not unhappy with you showing up, so that was satisfying. Let's see. We had the committee of the whole with permissive tax exemption, which was great. We had also a prep meeting for UBCM, which was great, and the recreation fair, which was on the Thursday. It was nice to see all the different groups presenting everything that they have, and even trying to get people in there and threatening to ask you to join choir, even though you have no singing talent, perhaps, like myself. And UBCM, awesome UBCM. It just felt more prepared. I think everybody knew where they were trying to direct their energy. The sessions were good. I know even being on the SOGA board, we had some different meetings where we got to engage with certain pieces that we didn't have for Merritt, which was nice. And one of the sessions that I had was where they were talking about food sustainability, and it was particularly interesting where they're talking about supports for farming and ways to increase tax base within municipalities as well. So I found that the sessions were very helpful. And yeah, this weekend we have the Garlic Fest coming up, as well as hockey games and all the other events. Last Friday, I also went to the Arts Council open house where they had Leonard, I have it wrong, but there was the art show there for the, I think it was the same McDougall, Mr. McDougall's art show, which was a show that was done previously. I think it was Piano Howard's first show, and it's also her 75th show. Yeah, it was, or George or McDougall? George. Yeah. It was a final show. That was one of her first shows and her final show because she's moved out of town, but what a great show it was. And unfortunately, he had his home destroyed by fire last week, but fortunately he had some items that were at the Arts Council, so he didn't lose all his art pieces at least, but hopefully people can support him with the loss that he suffered unfortunate loss that he had from his home. So I don't know if there's going to be anything that they were talking about trying to help him in the future, but I wish him the best of luck and hopefully we can help him. Thank you.
Councilor Petrosi.
Yeah, Thursday, September 5th, I attended the town hall to do with the homeless shelter and crime, and it was well attended, and a huge thank you to the mayor and CAO for answering all the questions. There was a lot of questions people had, so comments and things, so it was well attended. September 13th, Citizens on Patrol meeting, fairly well attended, and just yeah, we don't want to become vigilantes in town, and just remember public safety is number one. What else here? Just want to thank the mayor and councilors that attended the UBCM for representing Merritt, and I wasn't able to go, so thank you very much. And coffee with council this coming Thursday night, so for the public that are listening, at the Civic Center, and time 6 to 8 this Thursday.
Right.
And one other thing, scam presentation, October 3rd at the Civic Center, and 5:30 to 6:30. So for people listening, it's to do with phone scams, bank investigator scams, emergency scams, threats, and human trafficking. So that's October 3rd. 5:30 to 6:30 at the Civic Center.
Councilor Rogan.
So I will mention just the events that I attended, the communication strategy session, town hall, the CAO meetings. On September the 12th, as I had mentioned, I am part of the Lytton Business Recovery. I had the opportunity to attend, and also Pacific Can has announced a lending program for up to 1 million. And some of that money is not repayable if they meet the criteria. So we are helping them to restart the business community. That's going to be a lot of work to do. And I'm happy to be part of, or one of the facilitators. I also attended the meet and greet with What We See on September 5th. I attended the Community Features Provincial Conference, and it was about economic development for rural communities. So it was great, and I have a lot of information to share. I will be attending, of course, the Coffee with Council, and I encourage everyone to attend. So there are so many people that follow my page, and I don't interact, I don't engage, but I should keep reminding them that this is the opportunity. If they have any questions, I will be addressing those questions directly and in person on that session. And also tomorrow, I will be attending the What We See open house that it's scheduled for to celebrate the Disability Month. And I will be, talking about all the disability support that it's through my program.
Where is that at?
It's going to be at What We See.
Downtown? Okay, thank you. Tomorrow.
Thank you.
Councilor Baxter.
I went to pretty much most of the meetings everybody else went. I went to my first UBCM. I was very proud of all of the councilors and the mayor for standing up there and asking the hard questions to some of the symposiums and the forums. It was really nice to see, and meeting some of the ministers for the first time, and you guys really pushed what Merritt needs, and I was very proud to be a Merrittonian.
And thank you for the awesome bags. Apparently next year, I don't want to let the cat out of the bag here for any ministers that might be listening, but next year they're going to be getting honey and all sorts of goodies from the Valley, courtesy of Councilor Baxter. So I also want to echo the fact that thank you to Linda for getting us the C-bus passes. That's always nice to have, and thanks for taking care of us, getting the rooms booked. CO, your presentation and small community forums was fantastic. I gave you the rest of the day off, but you didn't take it, so too bad. But no, it was a good presentation. It's interesting that last year I presented and this year you presented, so Merritt is starting to get a bit of a foothold in this. So, but you had a great presentation. I think everybody certainly enjoyed it. You had very seriousness, but you also had a comedic effect in there as well, which went over really well. So it was great. So, and same with council. I know I did not see the housing one where I believe Councillor Egan, you asked a tough question. I didn't see yours, but so I know everybody was asking questions. We were at the mic a lot, so it was really Well, they never do, but it's election year. What are you crazy? Councilor Regan.
Yeah, thank you. I went to many of these events as well, at Town Hall, which I thought I was so happy to see so many Merrittonians out sharing their opinions, which I think you should be coming out more and more. Wherever you are out there, come to the Coffee with Council and come to the next Town Hall because that will be very interesting as well. I have had a couple of people call me about the permissive tax exemptions and the fact that they were overlooked. And I'm hoping that we do get an opportunity to revisit them. Are we going to be?
I don't believe we are. I believe what we've done is what we've done. Well, just the one I do, it will come to us again, the whole thing, will it not?
It will come as a bylaw,
Yeah.
so there's an opportunity for changes there, but if they did not submit an application,
They did submit an application.
or if they did not meet the requirements set out and did not respond to our requests for information, then they would not have been considered.
It's a charitable group.
They still have to meet the requirements.
Okay, well, I think they do.
We're going to get a lot of that the minute we start talking about permissive tax exemption. We're going to get a lot of that. It's the way it is. It's hard enough to go through it once. I really don't want to go through it again if we don't have to.
And I want to thank all the city staff for making it possible for all of us at council to go to UBCM. It is very, very informative. I completely enjoyed every session that I went to. 10,000 steps a day, whether I liked it or not. And run, and talk. So thank you very much.
Excellent. We have some information items. Anybody want to pull any one of those out? Everybody happy with what was there? We have something from Minister Ma, letter from Dan Schofield from thanking the city for the Merritt Centennials help that's happening there. And a letter from Steve Kozuki, the Forest and Ham Society. Anything there anybody's interested in? CEO report. CEO.
Nothing, too substantial to report other than we're coming into budget season. And so the staff have already met to begin our budget process. We had our senior leadership have a 2-day retreat where we discussed what we need to be thinking about for the budget process. So for those residents who are interested in the budget, they should be paying attention starting now. Permissive tax exemption sort of being the first step in starting to set some of those budget items. We have, as was mentioned, Coffee with Council on Thursday from 6 to 8 at the Civic Center. We encourage people to attend. We have ICS training starting on Thursday. So ICS 100, which is the basic incident command system training for all staff. All staff of the city will be receiving that first level of training for emergency management starting this Thursday. On tomorrow, we'll be closed. Town Hall will be closed at 2 p.m. for staff appreciation team building event. So just it is note out there, but just as a reminder to people who are currently listening or watching. We have October 2nd, a very exciting housing forum that we're hosting, bringing all of our government partners, our local service agencies and Indigenous governments and their organizations together to start talking about how we're going to collaborate better to address housing and homelessness in Merritt and the surrounding valley. So I think this will be our first real go at getting. It is not open to the public, but there will be some outcomes that public will see, including, I think, the mayor's hoping for a housing roundtable task force, potentially, that will help to drive our housing strategy moving forward. So it is meant to be a staff to staff kind of discussion, but we have, I will say, 30 people who are from various organizations who are planning to be in attendance at this meeting, which I think is an incredible response. Most of the Indigenous governments will be sending representatives as well. So that for us is an incredible response from our community partners and other organizations and the other levels of government. Interesting. BC Housing, we're still waiting to hear from because of the writ, right? It's the writ. It's really just the writ. It's very challenging. We are also have our open house coming up on October 9th. So all departments will be there with various presentations on activities that are happening. From Public Works, to the fire department, to the CFO, to myself, everybody will be there for, again, opportunities for the community to understand the work that we do and to understand how their dollars are spent.
We also have extended an invitation to Patrick Farmer and the water group to be there
Yes,
as
the
well.
watershed to come and talk about, again, water conservation and the importance of water conservation in the Coldwater watershed. Watershed.
6 to 8.
6 to 8, I think is, 5:30 to 8, something like 6. It's long. It's a couple hours. Snacks will be provided. Because if you give them food, Councillor Baxter will be baking all of them. No. Also, and I think that Councillor Egan mentioned, keeping an eye out for the next town hall. What we're going to be looking at probably in the next month will be a town hall on community safety, and we'll be working with the RCMP and the CPO's office on talking about community safety, which I think dovetails very nicely into the conversations that were had at the last town hall meeting. So we encourage everyone who is concerned about community safety to come out and participate in that discussion, remembering to be civil to one another and me. I think that's kind of the big stuff we've got coming up. We're switching over from summer operations to winter operations, particularly in public works. The arena's very busy. Hockey, minor hockey started this week. Figure skating, it will be in full, and they've had their preseason, but they are going to be in full gear going next week. Curling's going to start soon.
Pool opens on Friday.
Pool opens on Friday, barring any disasters. Thank you, Mr. Zackel. So lots of transitional time right now as our fall activities start rolling out and our winter season gets started.
The pool better open on Friday because I'm gonna be standing there with my inner tube and my shorts on, so it better be happening. Yeah. I could show up to council that way if you keep this all up. Also want to point out the fact that we have an e-petition for people that are listening. That is to get 1,500 signatures, 500 signatures, so we can get our voice on the floor at Ottawa. Dan Albus is working with myself, the mayor of Princeton, our staff at our recovery ROC to get this done. So we're moving on. What that is to get our money to build the dikes. It's that simple. So we just will continue to push forward on that until we get it. It's not a situation where we don't talk about it. It's a situation where we'll continue to push, be a fly in the ointment, and we'll do what we have to do. So if you want to see where that petition is, it's on the city webpage. Please click on it. It takes 2 seconds. All you gotta do is put your name in it, hit good, and you're good to go. It's important that we get this so we can get this dike coverage done. So,
And sorry, I did actually want to echo what Councillor Egan and Councillor Baxter said about the quality of work that was done by this council at UBCM. I attend many of the same sessions as council, and the questions that our councillors stood up and asked were hard questions. They were meaningful questions. And I think there was probably at least one of them asking a question at every session they were in or giving feedback. I know Councillor Etchart questioned some stuff about insurance or municipal finance, which I have one of those ones, insurance. Yeah. So, and then our meetings with ministers, again, also just really advocating hard for this community in a way that I don't think all the communities are doing. So I was proud to be there with this council.
and our resolution passed.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah, our resolution did pass, so that was good. Our resolution was to have the DCRIM dashboard reformed and in action, so we know what the pilot program is actually producing as far as deaths averted by intervention. We need a dashboard to find out how this DCRIM is working, and we don't have that. And it passed. So we did get a little bit of static on it from one lady, and I did have a conversation with her later, because a guy my age, I'm not really sure what the word holistic means. I hear that a lot from them younger folks, but I'm not really sure what holistic thing means. So she informed me, she filled me in, and she was gracious about it. I was really glad. Counselor from Maple Ridge, very nice person. We had a great conversation for about half an hour. She saw my ancient ways and I saw her against the ways sort of thing. So it was great. But I find I'm doing that more and more at these events. It's when I hear something I'm not sure of, I ask that person the question. So I was really happy. And this is one of the best UBCMs I've been to, and yeah, councils and staff Like if I had a council and staff like this, I could be mayor for 1,000 years. I'm serious. It's just been just great to be part of it. And we're coming up on 2 years. What can I tell you? You know, we're getting there. Yeah, not you. You, whatever. Yeah. Yes, you're doing great. So CAO report, fire statistics. Do we want to address that? Because I mean, it's very self-explanatory. Everything's up, always up. So anybody have anything on the fire statistics that? Excellent. So, oh, Councilor Egan.
Counselor Charney and I spent a fair bit of time at the trade show. And I'm going to be talking about the ambulance society that we spoke to. And they would be more than happy to come and present and get on board and support our efforts for getting a little bit of extra money back from the province.
Well, what I did ask the premier to make a response to my billing, and he said he would. So we'll see how that goes as well. One other thing, I had a meeting with the Dairy Association, and they really want to get on board with our federal government dike request. They're a fairly powerful organization. We had a meeting at the ARC, went for about 3 hours. They're a big group of people that want to get behind Merritt, Princeton, and Abbotsford for the diking funds, because they feel that it's going to affect and their industry, and they're a big pair of boots to have on the ground with us. So we will take them up on that. FCM is also wanting to be involved, so we're getting some big players in on this. So hopefully, not hopefully, we'll just continue doing it until we're flying the ointment and they give us what we want. You're good.
Did we have to approve Councillor Baxter's
That
request?
hasn't come to us yet.
Oh, sorry.
Next meeting. Yeah, it comes to us. Recommendations. Oh, hold it. Closed session. What resolutions? No, CPO, fire statistics. Oh, council resolutions. Well, that's the thing. So basically that's the update of everything we've done, correct? Yeah, so it's nice to see that. I like to see, sometimes it doesn't feel like you've done a lot until you see it all in that little tiny print you put there for us. Thank you. Yeah, so council resolutions. Thank you, Councilor Egan. Any questions on the council resolutions? Thank you. Closed session. Recommendation that the meeting be closed to the public pursuant to section 91C, labor relations or other employee relations, E, the acquisition, disposition, or expropriation of land or improvements, if the council considers that disclosure could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality. F, law enforcement, if the council considers that disclosure could be reasonably be expected to harm the conduct of the investigation under or enforcement of an enactment. G, litigation or potential litigation affecting the municipality. I, the receipt of the advice that is subject to the solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. K, negotiations and related discussion respecting the proposed provisions of a municipal service that are at their preliminary stages and that in the view of the council could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality if they were held in public of the community charter. I need a mover. Thank Councilor Petrosi, Councilor Baxter. Any questions on the closed meeting? All in favor? We'll take 5 and then get to closed.